Hi, Giants fans. Welcome to episode 4 of the Splash Hits podcast with myself, Charlie Baldwin, co-creator of the Splash Hits podcast and head admin of @SFGiants in the UK, Dave Gibson. How are you doing today, Dave?
I'm good, thank you, Charlie. Yourself?
I'm good, thank you as well. We're also joined by Ash Day, the lead Giants writer for Bat Flips and Nerds. I presume you're feeling quite good after the game last night, Ash?
Yes, indeed, Charlie. Yeah, enjoying the win over the Padres, reveling in the success of being back to 500. So, yeah, good times.
Well, always good early on in the season. And it is our pleasure to be joined by Eric Nathanson, the co-host of TortureCast today. How are things with you today, Eric?
Things are well, Charlie. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I look forward to talking Giants baseball and hearing a bit of the UK perspective on my favorite baseball team.
Brilliant. And that's actually the perfect segue because this is becoming the go-to question for every guest. We asked this to our friend of the show, Brooks Knudsen, as well. So, Eric, can you please tell us how you became a fan of baseball and the Giants? And if you want to, you can also tell us how you ended up co-hosting TortureCast as well.
Okay, they're kind of connected. I was born and raised in Chicago, which is half a country away, half a continent away from San Francisco, where the Giants are. But being Giants fans, you guys know that the Giants originally started in New York City. My father grew up in New York City as a fan of those Giants teams. And Willie Mays was his favorite player. And when they moved, he was devastated, but he stayed a fan. And then he moved to Chicago and then had me. And baseball is stronger than any other tie. I didn't want to be a Cubs fan. I didn't want to be a White Sox fan. I wanted to root for the team my dad rooted for. And I fell in love with the Giants. And 1987, when I was 8 years old, grabbed me. It was the NLCS against the St. Louis Cardinals. It was the perfect age for me to see a team go to the playoffs and compete. And then I had my heart broken the first time, and I was immediately hooked and wanted more. And I was the only Giants fan in my town, in my city, outside of Chicago. I was surrounded by a bunch of blue hats with all the Cubs fans, and then there's me with my black hat on all the time. And I've just always been a baseball fan. I played growing up. I played all throughout high school. I umpired for, like 17 years. I even made a go of it trying to become a professional umpire by going to Harry Wendelstedt School for Umpires in Florida some 15 years ago. And so baseball is just kind of in my blood. And now I live in, now I'm a host of TortureCast. And that came about back in 2013, I wrote an article about growing up in Chicago as a fan of a team from another area. It caught the eye of the host there, and they had me on as a guest. And about a year later, I became a permanent host. And TortureCast is created by Willie Dills. And the reason it's called TortureCast, for all you new Giants fans, is back in the day in 2010, the Giants were playing some really close games against specifically the Padres. And at the end of one of those games, Dwayne Kuiper notoriously said, "Giants baseball, torture." And so TortureCast was the name they came up with, and it has stuck since then. And we are on our 11th season of podcasting about the Giants, and I've been a part of the show for 7 years. And we call ourselves, and we are the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants, because we've been doing it for so long. We're not professional. We barely have any advertising, and we just love the Giants. So that's my story of how I became a Giants fan and now host a podcast called TortureCast and love the San Francisco Giants with all my being. I'm a baseball fan above everything else and a Giants fan above that.
Very good, and well done on the longevity as well, Eric, for TortureCast. To be honest, I don't know any other Giants podcast that's come close to being around for that long as well. Unfortunately, one of our co-hosts, Ben Salvi, couldn't be with us today, but he did want to ask you, who was your first favourite player? Was there a player that, when you were saying there in 1987, kind of grabbed your attention amongst that, what was a very good team at the time? And then we'll go to Dave and then Ash with their follow-up questions as well, if they have any.
Robbie Thompson. It's not even a question for me. I was a second baseman when I was 7, 8 years old. I was a little scared of the ball at that time. I kind of remember that. And they stuck me at second because the throw was short and it didn't, require a lot. So Robbie Thompson was my first ever favorite Giant. And I think I held on to him until Barry came along. I was not one of those guys that fell in love with Will Clark or Kevin Mitchell. I mean, I loved them and rooted for them, but Robbie Thompson was my guy. He's the guy whose batting stance I tried to copy.
So do you think being in Chicago, that's sort of being the only Giants fan, did that solidify your support, made you even hungrier, even more passionate because you're fighting everyone constantly?
Very much so. In 1989, the Giants and Cubs played in the NLCS, and I was literally, I don't want to say hated, but I was the bad guy among all my friends. And when Will Clark had the base hit in Game 5, when Will Clark hit the grand slam in Game 1, I was able to hold it over them because, 87, I was 8. So I'm 10 years old at that time, and we all know how obnoxious we can be as 10-year-old boys. And I was totally vilified for a while, and it was so much fun. I loved every moment of it. My best friend in the world, my next door neighbor growing up, he is a diehard Cubs fan, and every year we made bets on who would win the season series, Giants or Cubs. And then, when we were kids, it was something stupid. When we got older, it's a round of beers or something like that. And so it made for good fun, and it made me so much stronger in my love for the Giants because I always felt like, well, I'm doing something right. And especially being around Cubs fans, because I got to call them losers because they were Cubs fans, and it was the 80s and 90s. So, it made it so much easier. I mean, granted, the Giants weren't winning anything, but at least I didn't have 1908 hanging over me. 1954 sounded a lot better.
I'm interested, Eric. You said you've obviously been part of TortureCast for a little while now. And weirdly, today I was just on YouTube, wasting time as I do. And my algorithm spat out a Brandon Crawford TortureCast interview from like 4 years ago or so. I was wondering, were you part of that at all? Did you get to meet Crawford? Did you get to chat with him?
No, I have not been able to make it to a Giants game as a media member of TortureCast. I've gotten media passes 2 games, and as TortureCast, we have media passes. But just because of my own life, I haven't been able to get out to San Francisco as often as I'd like to. The only guys I've really gotten to interview with the access I've gained are Hunter Pence, I talked to for a little while. This was back in 2013. Wow. And Brian Sabian was the other one. I got a good 10, 15 minutes with Brian Sabian. I guess Flannery is another one. You guys know Flan. Yeah. Flannery's another one. He and I talked music for like 10, 15 minutes. So there's some, connections I've been able to make there, but, Crawford, I wasn't a part of that media day. Chad gets to do all the fun stuff because I've been living completely out east. I actually have lived in Florida for years before I moved here to the Vegas area. So now that I'm just a real short flight away from San Francisco and, once the pandemic ends, I'll be getting out to games a little bit more and hopefully get to do those kinds of things because it's kind of neat that we are a fan podcast, but we have press credentials.
That's amazing.
I don't know how it happened.
That's so cool.
Before I got there. So I just got to be thankful and ride the wave.
I think next year we're going to apply for our Splash Hits podcast press credentials so the UK clan can get out there. we'll join TortureCast.
The Giants as a whole are generally friendly with that. And if you're not looking for a season-long podcast, they seem to be okay with giving away, a game here, a game there, as long as it's not a Dodgers game. I mean, you should look for a Giants-Reds Tuesday night game, and you're going to get press passes.
All right, then. Well, this sounds very positive. I like it.
Splash Hits trip coming up.
On to the next question, Eric. So you've obviously known me for a little while now, and I know you've been keeping up with the Splash Hits podcasts as a whole. So what are your thoughts on what you've seen from the UK fan base so far? And also another question from our co-host, Ben Salvi, which was also the question I was going to ask anyway, is what are your thoughts, or what would be your thoughts if the Giants had to give up a home game or two to play in the UK, Japan, or elsewhere in the world if MLB decides to take the game more global?
All right, I'll start with the second question first. I have no problem if they take a home game away from the Giants. I have no problem if they take an entire series away from the Giants to try to grow the game globally. I'm a baseball fan, first and foremost. Like I said, Giants and then baseball, but I mean, I'm a baseball fan. I always want to see it grow and thrive. And I mean, it would be an amazing opportunity for you over the pond to get to see a game live in your own home. I mean, that just is not something that comes along every once in a while. That's a once in a lifetime experience. So I think the success of the NFL should be a blueprint for Major League Baseball. I think the NFL has done a really good job of marketing the game. And I guess you guys could speak to that more than me because you are where the marketing is happening for that. But they're always sold out. Those Yankees-Red Sox games were sold out too, I believe. And they were received wonderfully. And honestly, watching all that offense was so much fun. So much fun. And so as the second question first, yeah, I'd be totally fine with taking Giants home games away. I think if you get caught up in the minutia of the fact that the Giants lose 2 or 3 home games, then maybe you're a little too obsessed with certain things. Like, just relax, enjoy the game, enjoy the team. There's no reason to be angry about every little slight that seems to come the Giants' way. This goes for more than just, what I'm talking about. This goes to, ESPN power ranking articles and things like that. Like, it's okay if stuff like that happens. You just enjoy the team for a little bit. And so, and I've seen that from UK fans, from you guys, from what I've listened to so far. You're knowledgeable, and that is what stands out the most to me, is that you're knowledgeable. And Charlie specifically, I've noticed, and you guys do seem to be into the sabermetrics and the numbers a little bit more than some of the casual fans over here. I just got accused on Twitter this morning of being a guy who probably thinks RBIs are the be-all, end-all stat. And I didn't even get into a discussion about it, but I just came across curmudgeonly, and I got accused of that, and I was like, "What? No!" I had to block that guy right away. Like, you guys, I appreciate. Go dive into the numbers. It's the thirst for more that I see from UK baseball fans that I really like. And I, through our podcast, I know we have fans in the UK. We have listeners over there. There's quite a few that I've interacted with over the years. As a podcast host, I like to follow back listeners, especially ones that I know are from other places, like overseas, because they could teach me something that I might not necessarily know. So that's what I found to be from the UK. Every guy here sitting here, Ash, David, Charlie, you guys are all knowledgeable about the game of baseball. And I'm impressed by that. I really am. And it's good to see the embrace of the game that I love so much. I mean, how did you guys, because that's, it's my turn to flip it around. I know you've talked about it on the show, but how did you get into baseball? David, am I wrong? Or are you the guy who is more into baseball and not into any of the sports, really? You're not really into soccer or anything like that. You're into American sports. Yeah, that's what I thought. How did you end up hooked on American sports instead of getting sucked into your own country's culture?
So when I was young, obviously I liked soccer and things like that, or football as we call it. But yeah, as I got older, I'm a bit of a night owl. Musician, tend to be up all night anyway. I just saw bits of games here and there, baseball and American football. Yeah, that's the 2 sports I mainly follow. So just got bored of football and never liked cricket and games like that. I like a bit of international rugby, but it is baseball and NFL really. Baseball being number 1.
That's a cool way. I love the overnights, musicians. That's pretty cool. Ash, how'd you get into the Giants? How'd you get into baseball?
Oh, well, my story I was at school, always played basketball at school a lot, despite my modest height. And I kind of got into American sports through my love of basketball. I picked up NFL. I picked up baseball by about 2007. And like Dave, a bit of a night owl at that age, staying up far later than I should. We used to have a channel here that used to show games on Sunday and Wednesday nights in the dead of the morning. So I'd be watching baseball that way. And yeah, I kind of, similar to you, I'm a big baseball fan. I would have a team I supported, but I would watch any baseball anytime. So for many years, I kind of aligned myself with the Indians. I didn't want to pick the Yankees or the Red Sox or someone too big. I picked I'll call them a minnow for small market sake. I picked the Indians. But over the last few years, especially the last decade or so, the Giants kind of just pulled at me and kept pulling at me. And then I went to San Francisco and just fell in love with the city. I knew instantly, I was like, if I'm going to nail my colors to a flag, it's going to be San Francisco. They're going to be my team, and I haven't looked back. It's been a great ride so far.
That's funny. My first trip to San Francisco, I also immediately felt at home, and it was like, it's funny because it's not funny. It's funny and not in the haha sense, but the whole reason I finally went to San Francisco is my father, who raised me a Giants fan. He passed away in 2012. And in 2013, we went to San Francisco and scattered his ashes in McCovey Cove.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was the first time, though, that I'd ever been to San Francisco. Yeah. So, my point being, forget the circumstances, I still got there and felt like these are my fans. These are my people. So I totally relate to that, and totally see how you could become a Giants fan in that way. Is that what happened to you, Charlie? Is that how you became a Giants fan?
For me, Eric, it's similar to you, where it was completely down to family, because I have relatives in San Francisco. So the first time I traveled there was in 1998 when I was 12, and obviously my uncle was showing me through the sports. This is baseball, this is American football, basketball, and in the UK, I think Ash or Dave might have played it. We have a game called Rounders, which is a lot more of a simplified version of baseball, and I always enjoyed playing that. So for me, seeing baseball was an automatic link to, oh wow, it's like Rounders but more complicated. And to be honest, I can't even remember my first game because I was just rattling off that many questions to my uncle at the time and probably doing his head in. But yeah, for me it was a love at first sight kind of thing. Unfortunately, I was too young at the time to keep up completely. We didn't have the 24/7 coverage we did now. So I followed from afar, and it was really in about 2004 when MLB.TV really became big that I was able to follow at a much closer hardcore pace.
MLB TV is the greatest, right? I mean, I lived across the country from the Giants all these years, and I turned my wife, who grew up in Chicago, into a Giants fan just from watching the games day after day after day. And it makes me happy. The Cubs are on, and she'll still come over and watch the Giants games with me. It's really, the Giants have that pull. They really do. I think it's because of the people and around the team, and they did it the right way for so long. It felt like we didn't have a bunch of. We did have a steroid abuser in Barry, but we didn't win anything during that time. During the past decade or so when they were winning, it felt like the Giants were doing it the right way. So I could totally see why everybody here would be attracted to wanting to root for a team like that. And I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the UK fan base. I really do, for my own show, TortureCast, and for the daily interactions, because you guys are up at weird hours for me, and I'm up at weird hours. So I'm totally, Charlie will notice it. He'll be in we have a chat in the Giants Chatter Facebook group that we're both admins of, and Charlie will notice I'll be in there very, very early in the day sometimes. And I love that Charlie's in there some days because, I know he's awake because you guys are 8 hours ahead of me. So I can at least talk baseball when I'm waking up in the morning and kind of rubbing my eyes if everybody else is still asleep. So it's nice having you guys over there to be able to keep the conversation going 24 hours a day.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Eric. And earlier you were talking about a fan who had a go at you for using RBIs, which I would say is pretty bold. So that's my attempt at segueing into our bold takes for 2021, which was about the only thing we didn't do on our predictions show. So for me, this comes from a Giants Chair admin show, which I didn't do the maths for in my head. So there was a question that came up of unders and overs of whether Jake McGee would get 20 saves in a season, and I took the over and said 23. But I also said that 3 other Giants relievers would get 10 saves each, coming to a cumulative total of 53, which is a bit high, but I still do think it's possible. And the other bold take I have comes from Ben as well, the unofficial president of the Austin Slater Appreciation Fan Club, who says, could Austin Slater be MVP? And we'll go to Dave, Ash, then Eric, please, on those two bold takes.
Austin Slater, what, MVP for Giants or MVP for the league?
He just said MVP, so I think he was semi-jokingly saying MVP of the league.
All right, I can see him being up there for Giants MVP, get a few votes. Yeah, I can see that. McGee over 23 saves. Yeah, I'll go over on that, definitely.
Sorry, Dave, it was 53 saves in total, at least, as a minimum for the whole.
I was going to say, this is an easy over. I'm definitely taking 23. 53. Yeah, I'll go over. I'm going to be optimistic and say, yep, over. But my bold take, I think I already did it in the prediction show, and that was before the Tatis injury, I said the Giants will finish above the Padres. So that was my bold take.
That was a bold
before
take.
the injury.
You're looking like a psychic now, Dave. So, Ash, do you agree with the bold takes that me, Ben, and Dave have put out there?
Oh, I think Slater will have to have like quite the breakout season to be Giants MVP. I could see him winning like the Willie Mack Award by the end of the year, but he'll have to do some wonders to beat out like Yaz, and even Longoria is off to like such a hot start. So I don't think he'll be our team MVP. That'll be my take. As far as the saves go, I'm taking the under of 53 saves. I think McGee will get more than 20, but I think the Giants as a whole won't get that many saves because we're just going to blow out so many teams with our great offense that we're not even going to be eligible for saves. So we're going to get, we'll be, 90 wins. Come on, let's say that. But not as many saves because we're just going to dominate. There's my hot take.
I tend to agree with Ash when it comes to the saves over under. I would
Eric,
think.
Do you agree with all?
Yeah, I do. I agree with Ash. I think it's under only because the Giants win some games 8-4, 10-3. I think the Giants have an offense that can do that. I've been on the train that this is the best Giants offense since 2012. So I think they're going to score a ton of runs. Slater, I, again, agree with Ash. I was going to bring up the same thing. I was like, maybe the Willie Mack. But, there's too many good players on this team. And if Donovan Solano stays with the team all year, if Longoria continues to be hot, if Yastrzemski does anything like he's done the last few years, those would be the MVPs of the team. And, so I definitely think Slater is just, I think he's going to have a breakout season. I actually predicted that he'll lead the team in home runs. I guess that's a bold take. That's not the bold take I'm about to bring up, but that's a bold take. I think Slater will lead the team in home runs. But the bold take, am I missing any of yours that I need to comment on first?
No, I think you covered them all. I think you covered the 53 saves there. I think you mentioned Ash's one as well. Just us blowing out so many teams, that being the reason why we won't get there. So what's your bold take, please, Eric?
My bold take is that the Giants should trade Buster Posey. And I think that the Giants should trade Buster Posey as soon as his value is high to a team like the Braves that has a pitching staff that needs a catcher. And I love Buster Posey. I do, along with every one of you. But his value is never going to be higher. And his contract is up at the end of the season. And Joey Bart's knocking on the door. And the whole thought behind this is if Joey Bart is producing, then you can look into trading Buster Posey. So my bold take isn't let's trade Buster Posey. My bold take is if this happens, then this could happen. If Joey Bart goes off in May in Sacramento, can you imagine Farhan having to keep him down at that point? What if Joey Bart hit 7 home runs in the month of May and bats like .422? It's going to be hard to keep him in Sacramento at that point. So what do you do? How do you solve that problem? Well, back in 2010, the Giants traded Benji Molina to the Rangers to pave the way for one Buster Posey. So I just propose that Buster does the same thing that Benji did and steps aside if need be. But I'll be honest, I made this take a week and a half ago before Buster hit home runs, before Buster showed that his hip is healthy. So it's not that I'm backing down on it. I'm just not sure the possibility is he might be better than I thought. You know what I mean? And you don't want to get rid of that kind of production if he is better than I thought. So a lot of things have to happen for this to happen. And when I said it on it was the Giants Chatter admin pregame, which turned into what the hell is the name of Doug's podcast? The Say Hey podcast preview show. Yeah. So it came about there. So I'd like you guys' thoughts. I want to know if you would, first of all, would you freak out if the Giants traded Buster Posey? Second,
Dave, because I remember sorry, go on, Eric. Sorry, yeah.
I was going to say, second of all, I'm fully aware he has a no trade clause. Fully aware. Buster has to okay this. And I think that Buster only okays it to Atlanta or another California team. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, like you say, it was a week ago. I was watching that chatter, and I think I instantly messaged Charlie with the Monty Python blasphemer gif, because that was the first thing that came into my head. Blasphemy! How dare
That's what it is.
But yeah, I love Posey, and I've always thought of him as staying with the Giants, keeping his experience there. Now his hips are working well. But like you say, it's hopefully he'll stay. But just staying with the team, even going into coaching, I just want him to be around the Giants and be with the Giants forever. But so it'd have to be one hell of a trade to be trading away Buster Posey for me. I'm too sentimental about it. I can't see past it.
To be fair, I'm also sentimental about Buster, but I think I'm worried about the reality that he's going to walk away at the end of the year. And I don't want us to, as Giants fans, to feel like we were left holding the bag a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
If he decides to go play for another team, it's like, well, wait a second. Why weren't we good enough anymore? So I do agree with you there. I have that sentimentality with Buster as well.
I think with the no trade as well, if it did happen, it was because he wanted to. So that would sort of soften it a bit, I guess. But yeah, if he just walked away at the end, that would be like heartbreak.
Ash, even though you might disagree with it, is it something that you could at least understand the framework for why it could be possibly done?
I think Eric has made a very convincing argument, actually. When you first said it, I was going to say this is absolute sacrilege, especially in my house. This is the house of Posey. Like, we worship at the altar of Posey in my house. But you actually made quite a good point for it. Like, if it does depend on a lot of factors, for instance, Bart's development and Bailey waiting in the wings as well. So, like, you're right. If Bart's hitting hot by the summer before the trade deadline and Buster still has value to other teams, contenders, someone like the Braves, you could imagine him waiving his no trade clause. He's a Georgia boy. So going back to Atlanta, like, that could work. I mean, I'm not settling for anything less than Ian Anderson and Ronald Acuna Jr. in the trade. But yeah, I think that's optimistic. But yeah, I'm sentimental like Dave and yourself. I could never part with Posey. I really hope they can sign him to an extension next year and keep him around. Yeah, but you've made a very good argument for possibility of trading Posey, but I can't do it. It'd break my heart.
Yeah, it's funny because everybody is saying, well, if it happens now, I'm going to look like a genius, but I don't want it to happen. It's just the logical side of me that's been thinking about the Giants' future plans. And as high on the Giants as we are, their plans are not for 2021. Their plans are for 2022, 2023. And it's hard to imagine where Buster fits into that. If he takes a backup role, then he will totally fit into that, though. If Buster is good with, only catching 60 to 80 games a year, I think, the Giants could extend him. And I remember being in that chat, Charlie, you were among everybody else who was kind of like, wait, did he just say that? Wait a second. And then I laid out the logical argument like Ash just said. So, I mean, it's not as crazy as it sounds.
It's one of those things where, Eric, where you kind of just hear it straight off and it's just the shock value that gets you straight away. But then when you think about it a bit more, you can kind of see the reason why. But I'm also normally the least sentimental person on this podcast, but for me, this would be like the Yankees trading Derek Jeter or the Braves trading Chipper Jones. It's just something the team shouldn't do unless it absolutely has to for some strange reason. But there is a situation there, like if Patrick Bailey, if his bat gets going, because defensively he's meant to be superior to Bart. Offensively, in the longer term, he could be superior to Bart as well. So if they both get hot, they get going, and Bailey can hammer his way to high A or even double A through the season, and you could see a situation where it would be absolutely awful, but you could understand it. But for me, I think the DH is going to be inevitable, and with the way Buster's hitting, I think they'll find a way to kind of put in between, say, DH and catcher, and someone, maybe a Darren Ruff or someone like that would get traded during the season anyway. And I think that's the way for him to be able to stay. But in terms of could it happen? Yes. Am I hoping it happens? I'm in agreement with all three of you. Absolutely not. But speaking of Buster Posey, he's probably been the hottest player of the season so far for the Giants. So for those of you who may not have been able to see or hear every game, we're going to do a quick review of the game so far. So the season opener, game one against the Mariners, Kevin Gausman threw 90 pitches with 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, and 1 run allowed in 6 2/3 innings pitched. The Giants' offense was powered by home runs by Longoria, Posey, and Slater, which put the Giants into a 6-1 lead going into the 8th inning. And unbelievably, a nightmare inning happened where a combination of Matt Whistler, Yarlin Garcia, and Tyler Rogers blew and lost the lead, and the Giants ends up behind 7-6. Alex Dickerson then hit a solo home run to tie it in the 9th. But then, unfortunately, Jose Alvarez lost the game on, in my opinion, the worst way to lose a game, a walk-off walk in the 10th for the Giants to lose 8-7. So, obviously, there's one key moment to review here, in my opinion, which is the 8th inning and the use of the bullpen. So my question to you guys is, would you have used the bullpen in a different way in the 8th inning? So, for instance, I was okay with putting Matt Whistler and Yarlin Garcia in there to begin with, but then after seeing both of them struggle, and with the game and the lead on the line, it's my opinion of that's where we should have gone straight to Jake McGee, go with the hottest hand, the strong hand, the guy we know who was most likely to nail it down and get out there with a lead, then use Moronta in the 9th. So what are your thoughts? Would you have gone a different way? And I'll go to Dave and then Ash, then Eric, please.
Yeah, I'm in the camp of that this isn't necessarily a Kapler problem, and that the bullpen just could not throw strikes. The only thing in hindsight I might have done different is maybe left Goldsman in there to finish the 7th, which would have changed the lineup for the 8th and who's coming in and who's coming out. But after that, like you say, the Giants came back and lost it on walks. So yeah, I'm not sure if you would have gone with whether they would have found strikes or not. So yeah, Jake McGee's the obvious answer to lock it down, but I like him in the closer role. Maybe they should have brought Moronta in, maybe. So yeah, I'm definitely not on Twitter at the time. Suddenly exploded and Kapler was the worst manager around again. But I don't think that was on him, that one necessarily. Because other moves he made, like putting Dickerson in, pinch hitting, home run. So that move worked. It's good when it works, and when it doesn't, he gets to the bullpen. Yeah. But yeah, that's the bullpen problem for sure.
Ash, what way would have you gone in that situation?
Very much exactly what Dave said. It's not. It doesn't feel like a Kapler problem. He picks the guys that are there to throw strikes. They didn't throw strikes. Too many walks. Yeah, Dave just covered everything I would have said perfectly. I'm fully on board.
Sorry, Ash.
And Eric, are you in agreement with Dave and Ash there?
Not totally. I would have let Whistler stay in. I thought all the contact he was giving up was weak contact, and I know he walked the first guy, and then he gave up 2 hits. But I mean, he did it again yesterday. He gave up weak contact, and so I would have given him a chance to try to roll a pair and get out of there and minimize the damage. But who knows how that would have gone from there. I do agree with the fact. I really have come around. I mean, Kapler didn't throw the pitches. These guys, it was opening day. You know, maybe Alvarez was a little nervous. Maybe these guys just had the butterflies, and these pitchers just, you know, every one of them just seemed to not have it. So I don't think you can necessarily put it on Kapler when the players just didn't perform. So there's not much different he could have done. There's not much that the Giants could have done either. You know, sometimes it's just not your day, and for those guys, it wasn't. I'm with you, Charlie, though. That's the worst way to lose a game. 3 straight walks like that. I mean, that was so brutal.
I was getting Armando Benitez flashbacks, Eric. It was that bad. Ash has had to go and reboot due to technical difficulties, so we're just going to talk about this game a little bit more while we wait for him to come back. Tyler Rogers in that role, is that something you agree with, Eric? I'd like to see him in a role where he needs a ground ball rather than a strikeout, to be honest. And I'll go to you, Dave, on that as well.
I don't know. I don't really like Tyler Rogers. I have a hard time getting behind him. I don't know what the best situation is for him, because I feel like the guys are either on him completely or not seeing his pitches at all. And you don't know what you're going to get. So I find him to be a guy who needs to come in with a clean inning, but you have to find out right away if he has it or not. I mean, Dave, do you like Tyler Rogers? I mean, he's funky and all that. He's fun. I love his story, but like, I don't know. I kind of watch the game like this when he comes in, and it worries me that he's going to give up a big bomb.
Yeah, exactly the same. It's scary when he comes in. It's fun to watch, and like you say, maybe ground ball situations, but yeah, it is scary. I don't know what like you say, what is the scenario that you're using for, but yeah, it's definitely scary. But we love torture, don't we?
He's the definition of torture cast, Eric. So maybe he should be your player of the podcast, possibly.
Oh my God, Giants baseball torture.
Okay, so while we wait for Ash to come back, we're going to move on to Game 2. Johnny Cueto had what I'd describe as a bend but not break outing. He was great in the first inning, gave up runs in the second and third, got out of the fourth inning due to 2 great defensive plays, including a double play by the Brandons. He had a solid fifth inning, but he was at 90 pitches. Kapler did let him pitch into sixth until he allowed a base runner or 2. The offense was again powered by Buster Posey and Evan Longoria, who both hit home runs. The bullpen also bounced back, pitching 4 1/3 scoreless innings in a 6-3 win. So my question for the key moment of this game was, do you think it was fair, given his record from last season and given how there were points in this start where he struggled, that Cueto did manage to talk Kapler into facing those extra 2 hitters, as he was on 90 pitches at the time, which was similar to where Gausman was the night before, and arguably Gausman was pitching better. So we'll go to Eric and then Dave on this, please.
I didn't think Cueto had one of those outings where he kind of lost it in the what was it, like the second and the third for a little bit, and then he regained it in the fourth. I was surprised that he was sent back out there again, and then I was thrilled Cueto got the ground ball double play, and then shocked once again that he was getting pulled at that moment. It was kind of like, well, if you're going to send him out there for one more inning, let him go. It's kind of weird that Kapler has this thing where he wants to pull these guys and get his relievers in. So I think that's a result of that more than anything else. I think the reason Cueto got pulled when he did was because Cap wanted to get, who was that? Wandy Peralta into the game at that time. And so I think the same thing happened with Gauss in the first game, where he wanted to get Berriger into the game in a certain situation, and he did the same thing. So I think I think we saw a combination of Cueto looking like Cueto, and I don't trust Johnny anymore. I really don't. He has his good days, he has his bad days, but it was good to see when he had command of his pitches, he overpowered the Mariners. So, I thought Kepler handled that probably as best he could.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of level I think we're going to get from Cueto. That's the sort of games we can hope to get from Cueto, really. Like you say, he did drop a bit in the third, fourth, but came back again. I think, he's still a solid pitcher, and I think
do you agree with the way Kepler handled that, Dave, or do you think he should have come out a little bit earlier?
No, I think I know Kepler probably doesn't listen to fans, but you got to be wondering if he's thinking, well, everyone's giving me hell for pulling Goldsman at 90, and now am I going to pull Cueto? But I think it is more to do with he's looking at when he can get pitchers in, and especially if there's one out. They don't have to face three batters because it's the end of the inning. So he's looking to get players out there just to get them settled in, I think. So, yeah, like you say, Barriger in the first game and then Peralta. So, yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, well, it worked out in the end then.
And I think you guys would agree as well, by just going by the stuff he had, that Kikuchi was probably the best pitcher, arguably the best pitcher we've faced so far. I know Flexen did shut us out, but stuff-wise, to me, Kikuchi looked better. So was that a positive point for the way the offense is going, that we managed to get so many runs off him in the end, even though he was at times completely dominant over us? And I'll go the opposite way around. I'll go to Eric and then Dave and then Ash, just to put you back into the loop. We're just talking about Yusei Kikuchi and how it was a good sign the Giants managed to get the runs off him that they did and hit some home runs off him, given how good his stuff looked and how good he was pitching in that game.
He did look good. Kikuchi surprised me. Kuko mentioned it during the broadcast. He's like, this guy was out here throwing 92, 93 in spring training, and all of a sudden he's bringing it at 97. And I think it caught the Giants off guard their first time through the order. And I think we saw what we're going to see from the Giants all year. They may not hit a pitcher the first time through the order, but we've got a lot of smart hitters on this ball club, and they're going to make adjustments. And the second and third time through the order, they're going to be able to get to pitchers, even if pitchers are on their game that day. I agree with you. Kikuchi on Friday, pitched better than Flexen on Saturday, and it was kind of nice to get a win against a quality pitcher like that. So, I think that was a good sign for the Giants' offense for this season is handling a game like that with Kikuchi.
I think we were relying on a few players, Posey, Longoria, Solano, to get us through that game. But definitely coming with a picture like that, it's almost like we get a pitcher that we're not too sure of. He's not the best pitcher maybe around, and we struggle quite regularly. And then we seem to park up for the big games, obviously for the Dodgers and that. But when you don't expect them to hit well, they seem to hit well, and you'll get a random player just come back from Korea, and we really struggle. And it seems to be a regular problem, I think. But maybe it's the scouting. I don't know. Yeah, definitely the second game was very positive.
Yeah, I think Mariners fans will be pretty happy with what they saw from Kikuchi. And like Eric said, I think he definitely caught us off guard. From what I understand from Kikuchi, his issues since he came over to MLB has been getting through the order. From what I know about him, second time, third time through the order is when people start to really, make him pay. And thankfully the Giants made those adjustments, started to get those hits, and turned it into a win. So yeah, it was good to see us against one of the top pitchers. I was really impressed with his breaking stuff. Kikuchi's a good one. So it was extra good that we managed to get some runs off him and pull out the win.
Yeah, after bouncing back to tie the series at 1 each, the Giants then went into Game 3 against Chris Flexen, who's just recently returned from a few years in Korea. Unfortunately, the Giants was stymied in this one. They got shut out 4-0. The only real offensive standout was Donovan Solano, who does what he always seems to do now, which is go 2 for 4. But in fairness, Logan Webb did keep us in the game, and he was okay, but not great. He did allow 3 earned runs. He struck out 5, walked 3, with 7 hits. But to me, if this had been last year, it would have been one of those games where he put himself into a hole where it would have been too hard to get out of. But I think if he's going 5 or 6 innings and giving up 3 runs, I think most of us would accept that and say, well, with this offense and bullpen, he is keeping us in the game, and more often than not, that will lead to a win. So I wanted to know what your guys' thoughts were about Logan Webb in this outing and after the hot spring he had. So this time I'll go Dave, Eric, then Ash, please.
Yeah, I thought Logan Webb had a lot of there was a lot of build up for Logan Webb, and I'm not sure he could have possibly lived up to how much he was built up. All the talk of the breaking balls, and I think he even said himself that he might have got a bit happy with it and overused it. And everyone, if you talk about it enough, people are going to be watching out for it. But I think like Cueto, if he can keep us around that sort of level, like you say, with our offense normally, not so much in that game, we'll still be in that game. So yeah, I think he's still good. Looking forward, he's going to be good still. Yeah, it's good to see him out there doing well.
Yeah, his changeup looked good when he got 10 swing and misses, Logan Webb, which was like tied for the second most in his career in a start. He didn't necessarily dominate or anything. He kept them in the game. That's what you want a starting pitcher to do. He kept them in the game, gave them a chance to win, and the offense, I don't want to say they failed him because they're going to have days like that. Flexen being another guy that the Giants hadn't seen before, so he stymied them. And, when it came to Webb, though, I thought he kind of gutted through some times where he was fighting with himself. He said he got too happy with the changeup. That's the quote that stuck out to me too, Dave. And it made me think that he realizes I have a really good pitch here. I need to not try to use it too much. And so, if anything, we had a learning experience for Logan Webb. And, it didn't really cost the Giants anything because their offense didn't show up that day. So it's not like we're going to pin the loss on him anyways. So I'm encouraged from what I saw from Logan Webb. And I'm like you, though, that he could not have lived up to the expectations. If he had come out and thrown 8 no-hit innings or something like that, then maybe as much as we were hyped for him, it would have come through. But it does not deter me from thinking Logan Webb's going to be a quality starter for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think what you guys have just said exactly is my feelings on Webb. After the amazing spring he had, I think it was going to be hard to live up to the expectations. But I think after his game 1 performance, none of the shine has come off what he did in the spring. Everything is still there for him to be a very, a big contributor to this rotation this year. I'm also just thinking where he is in his career. Yes, he started 3rd in the rotation this season, but realistically, he's still more of a 4th, 5th guy at this point in his young career. So what he did against the Mariners is exactly what you want from your 4th or 5th guy. He kept you in the game. He gave the offense a chance to make us competitive. It didn't happen this time for the reasons we've all said, but I'm not soured on Webb at all. I think he'll turn it around, and yeah, I think he's going to be fun to watch this year. He's got a lot of talent, and that changeup is filthy, and the more he gets comfortable with it, it's just going to be a major weapon for him. So yeah, all aboard the Webb train.
Okay, so after unfortunately dropping the series 2-1 to the Mariners, the Giants played the Padres in what is probably the biggest series for the Giants in April. We don't face the Dodgers till I think it's May, if I remember correctly. So this is a good indicator, a series of where the Giants are currently in the NL West, facing the team that's supposed to either come second or potentially win the division. The Giants won 3-2 on the back of solo home runs by Darren Ruff, Evan Longoria, and Mike Yastrzemski. Anthony DeSclafani pitched 5 innings, allowing a run on 4 hits, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts on 86 pitches. But however, the main takeaway from the game was the Fernando Tatis Jr. injury, where he left the game with a dislocated shoulder. So I'm just going to leave this up to you guys. Just one different take each, please, from that game that you'd like to share with us all.
Well, Yeah, Tatis injury aside, I think it was a great game to wake up to. I must say, I must say, I felt a bit sick on opening day because I stayed up all night, and it got to 7 o'clock, and there were Mariners UK fans waking up, and they got to see their team come back and win 2 innings. So this time I got to do it. So I woke up, and I got to see Yaz hit a home run, and give it. Hopefully that'll take him out of his slump. That's what I'm taking away from it. Is that he came in, pinch hit, Kapler move, and basically took the game for us. And so yeah, really good. And bullpen again. We haven't really mentioned it since the first game, but bullpen's been excellent since that game, really. So yeah, that's what I take from that game.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Dave. Seeing Yaz struggle the first series in Seattle was hard to watch. I can forgive him massively because he's clearly struggling with that hand, which is what scratched him from the lineup against the Padres. It must be giving him some real issues, more than they're probably letting on. But to see him pinch hit and hit that home run, just like Yaz, I'm sure I speak for everybody when we all say he's one of our favourite Giants in his already brief career. But yeah, seeing him put that home run over the wall was something special. And then we got McGee in the ninth, shutting it down, or not really shutting it down, but doing the job. I mean, he's putting the torture in Torture Cast. I'm thinking we're going to see a bit more of that this year, but hopefully less shaky McGee and more stable McGee. But he did it. I can't fault him. He got out of the jam. He saved the game. We win against the Padres. After how much they've been highly touted this year, I'm going to take and savor every single win against the Padres this year. The Tatis news is sad, though. You don't want to see a guy like him go down, so hopefully it's not long-term. If it is, well, I just hope the Giants benefit from it.
And you don't want to say that as a fan, like, oh, I hope the Giants benefit from the injury, but it's true. Let's be honest. It's true. My takeaway from the game yesterday, honestly, it's funny. You guys covered all the positives. I'm going to be a little pessimistic here for a moment. I'm tired of solo home runs. There's got to get some guys on base when these guys hit them out. The Giants apparently are going to hit home runs this year. So they need to get some guys on base beforehand. And it'd be nice to see Donnie. I think Donnie's the only one who's managed to get on base for somebody else to hit a home run this year. I think every other homer has been a solo shot. And so I'm a little tired of solo home runs. That's my takeaway from last night. But on the flip side, I'm also happy to see that they're still hitting those home runs. Like whenever Ruff hits a home run, it surprises me. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like he's just kind of one of those guys that I don't know. He's all or nothing. So, when he does it, you're kind of like, oh, hey, yeah, that's why this guy's here. And so it was good to see that. It was good to see Yaz as well. I'm in agreement with you guys on Yaz. It was great to see Yaz come back and swing a bat and have a solid connection and hit a home run. And hopefully that'll be what can get him going. And obviously we don't have a lineup yet for tonight, so we don't know if Yaz is healthy or not. So, I'm kind of curious now to see going forward, is Yaz going to play the rest of the series, or is he going to stay on the bench and just come off the bench to pinch hit? But I'm guessing Yaz probably starts tonight. If there's something that's not seriously wrong with his hand, I can't see them keeping him out anymore. So, like you guys, my takeaway was, hell yeah, go Yaz.
Okay, thanks, guys. So with game 1 in the books, it's game 2 tonight. It's another late game UK time tonight. It's Aaron Sanchez against Yu Darvish. Although Yu Darvish did allow 400 runs in 4 2/3 innings in his season debut against the Diamondbacks. Game 3 will probably be the best pitching matchup we've seen all season in Kevin Gausman versus Blake Snell. So after what we've seen so far, we've seen last night, and obviously as Eric says there, we kind of don't want to say, well, Fernando Tatis Jr.'s injury is a benefit to the Giants, but statistically you can't argue that it isn't. So are you guys confident of winning at least 2 out of 3 games in this series now? And I'll go to Dave, and then Ash, then Eric, please.
Yeah, I'm definitely confident we can get 2 at least. It'd be great if we get 3. But I've not really seen much of Sanchez, so it'll be an interesting matchup tonight. But it's the wrong time for us. I think it's a 3 o'clock morning start, and I've got work at 7, so I'll have to watch the catch up on that one. But while we're just talking about the last series, worth pointing out that the Giants are topping home runs in the whole of MLB and a game behind Houston Astros. So we're tied for 9 with the Houston Astros, but we've played one less game. So, I mean, I feel that does definitely need a mention. There might be solos, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I think tonight whatever we get from Sanchez tonight will be a bonus. To be honest, I'm not expecting the win, but if we can pull it out, 2 out of 3, brilliant. I think tomorrow's game with Gaussman back. Did you say Charlie against Snell? He'll be up against Snell.
Yeah, it is Blake Snell. Ash,
so
yeah.
that's like the marquee matchup of the series. I mean, obviously going up against someone like Snell is never easy, but Gaussman's already shown he's got the goods so far this year. So, yeah, tonight from Sanchez against Darvish, odds are in probably the Padres' favor, but maybe they're still reeling from the Tatis news. Their heads might not be in it. So if we can sneak a victory, I'll take it, obviously. And then tomorrow with Snell versus Gaussman, what will be. But I'd love a sweep, but I think I'm getting a bit optimistic there. I'll take 2 out of 3, obviously.
I think the Snell matchup might be better for the Giants than the Darvish matchup. We've seen that they hit better against lefties, so I'd look for that Gaussman-Snell game to be the one that the Giants might take, because like Ash said, we have no idea what we're getting from Sanchez in this first game. And, I love Dave pulling out the home run stat. I can't believe this is our offense. They have 9 home runs in lead baseball. Like, that is so cool. I don't think Darvish will give up homers here and there. I don't know if the Giants will be able to continue it tonight. It all depends on when they get into that Padres bullpen. I think every game in the series really depends on that. And so the Giants will probably take 2 out of 3. And I'm like Ash. I'm hoping they kind of sneak in one tonight with everybody being distracted with the Tatis news, and their heads might not totally be in it. And, these Padres might think, well, we're going to face Aaron Sanchez. So we're they might be looking past to Gaussman on Thursday. So I'm like you. What's your thought, Charlie? What do you think is going to happen in the next couple of games? Are the Giants going to be able to take this series from the Padres and come home at 500, or are they going to be stuck below 500 when they face the Rockies on Friday?
I think I'm confident, Eric, that we'll win the series at least 2-1. As you guys were saying on the Giants admin chat last night as well, there is problems with the Padres bullpen, especially like from the left side, where they are a bit short of arms in that department. So that's one way they can be taken advantage of. And as you say, like when you guys were mentioning the Fernando Tatis Jr. Injury there, like immediate flashbacks to 2011 came rushing back to me, Dave and Eric, and I'm sure you guys can remember not only where you were, but how you felt as soon as you saw that injury to Buster Posey. And we all know how that affected team morale, not just then, but later on into the season. And there was just something missing the whole way through. And I feel that could be the same way for the Padres as well. But thanks for that, guys. And just as a reminder to our UK fans who are listening, as well as European Giants fans, we finally have some UK time-friendly games coming up. On Friday, we start the home opening series against the Rockies. The Friday game is at 9:35 p.m. UK time, with both Saturday and Sunday games at 9:05 p.m. UK time as well. So fingers crossed we can go there, absolutely crush the Rockies. I won't mention the magic S word for jinx kind of purposes, but I know we're all thinking it. So fingers crossed we can go from there. And I just want to quickly introduce a new segment we're going to be doing for the year called Prospect Spotlight. The Giants farm is a very important part of the team going forward, and we have decided to follow an actual prospect all the way, quite a way down the farm system. And his name is Javier Francisco, or his full name is Javier Francisco Alexander Estrella. He was signed out of the Dominican Republic in the last signing window for $10,000, and he plays the shortstop position. He's currently 6'2" and 181 pounds. His English is really advanced for his age, which is unique for a prospect at the stage of his development. Javier also came through the Fernando Tatis Sr. Academy as well, and Tatis Sr. has already made favourable comparisons of Javier to Fernando Tatis Jr. I also asked Javier a few questions to get a little bit more insight into both him as a person and a ball player. So Javier is also a Giants fan at heart, which I found to be amazing. So I asked him about when and how he became a fan, and he said, "I'm a Giants fan since I was a child. I became a Giants fan because of Barry Bonds and the Jeff Kent era. I didn't see them, but I could see the highlights videos of them, and that motivates me more to be a Giants fan. The winning of the 3 World Series titles, Buster Posey being named the NL Rookie of the Year, and my dad also told me about Juan Marichal and the Alou brothers, and that made me fall in love with the Giants." I also asked Javier what his own personal baseball development aims and or goals were for this season, and he said, "My number one goal right now is to keep developing and growing with my coaches in every aspect of the game, getting my body stronger and play hard at the game that I love. As we all lost last year in terms that we couldn't play and we couldn't develop in the academy, and depending the plans that the team have with me, I'm very excited to play this season either in the DSL, which is the Dominican Summer League, or in the AZL, Arizona Rookie League, which is the league where all international prospects start and when they come to America." For my final question, I asked if Javier had a message for Giants fans in the UK and Europe, to which he said, "To all the Giants fans in the UK and Europe, keep cheering up for the team that we love. I'll be working really hard in order to get to the majors and help the Giants win many championships with the help of my fellow teammates and coaches. Also, I hope that one day we could play in the UK, a Giants versus Dodgers series, because I really like the UK, the weather, and the history of the country. And from our perspective at Splash Hits Pods, we're also hoping our schedules do line up later in the season so that we can do a proper interview with Javier. If you want to know more about Javier Renzi, who is also known as @Giant Perspective, that's @Giant PROSPECTIV on Twitter, who also writes for Around the Foghorn, did a great in-depth interview with Javier for the Prospects Worldwide website, which you can find at www.prospectsworldwide.com. Javier is also on Twitter as @JavierAlex2019, so @JAVIER Alex2019, and please do follow him as he does put out videos of batting practices, in-game videos, fielding drills. He loves interacting with the fans, and I'm sure you also speak on behalf of Dave, Ash, and Ben when I say we look forward to following him throughout the season and seeing him hopefully rise up through the Giants farm system. And just before we go, I was wondering if any of you guys had any final thoughts.
What, on Javier or just the Giants in general?
Just in general, but it can be on Javier as well if you want, Dave.
Well, I was reading a lot of the interviews you sent me, and I was quite struck by his age, but how he seems to he's patient. He's always talking about patience, and obviously following it from this early stage, it's going to be a lot of patience to hopefully he'll get to the majors one day. But it'd be interesting to see, and it'll be fun to follow. So we're going to have to keep doing splash hits for quite some years if we're going to follow it all the way through. But I will say that Wednesday's game is UK friendly as well at 9:10. So.
Lovely.
Awesome.
Lots of baseball to come.
Yeah.
I did like that Javier said one of his favourite things about the UK was the weather. You don't hear that very often about our country. But I suppose if he's been in the Dominican forever, maybe a bit of rain and cold might be a bit refreshing. So I can see why.
Weather.
Yeah.
So now you've put me on the Javier Francisco radar. Now I'm going to I just followed him on Twitter. I'm going to see what happens just because of you guys. And I'm glad to hear you guys are finally going to have UK-friendly start times. I understand struggle having lived across the country from the team before. So your start times at like 10 after 9, that's like mine used to be. So I get the struggle of staying awake late at night. Full disclosure, I fell asleep opening day, and I didn't see them blow the 5-0 lead. And I woke up the next day and saw it. So it was probably best for me because I would have woken up the entire house when they were blowing it in the 8th inning.
I saw
I think
people
I
on
didn't
Twitter.
know if I was delirious or not at that 7 o'clock in the morning. It's like, am I seeing this? I think I tweeted, "Are we really going to walk in the ring and run?" And then it happened. So, no.
I saw someone on Twitter who'd blatantly gone to bed before the end of the game, and they woke up the next day and was like, "So how about that victory, everybody? Like, it's great the Giants have got their first win." And then about a minute later, they posted like, "Oh yeah, I went to bed before the end, and I've just seen it." And I was like, unlucky.
At least I woke up. I record every game, so at least I woke up. That's what I was gonna. I wondered that with you guys. Do you have the ability to record games and watch them at your own leisure, or do you just have to catch them? Oh, MLB TV has that function, so you can pretty much watch
archives it. Yeah.
Yeah, it does have that function. So that was a dumb question. Forget I asked.
No, it's all right. Well, it's good if people don't have MLB TV and they like the Giants. You need to get it because you can watch the condensed games, just the highlights, or you can watch all of the game. And you can skip all the annoying flashback adverts in between each inning.
That's a good point. This was
seeing
the
same plays over and over again is just.
Yeah. This was a blast, guys. I really appreciate you having me on as a guest. I really did enjoy being here. You guys are knowledgeable Giants fans. You definitely see the game, see baseball through orange-colored glasses, and I personally love that. I love anytime meeting and interacting and hanging out with new Giants fans. So I just want to say thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, Eric.
It's an absolute pleasure, Eric. Thanks for coming on, and hopefully we can sort out having you on again at some point in the season, and maybe doing some kind of crossover with TortureCast, maybe. So I'm going to say my own goodbye and let the guys say each of theirs. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed listening and watching as much as we've enjoyed recording it. And go Giants!
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Go Giants indeed.